All right, hopefully you can hear. Hello, hello. Checking to see if it's actually live. Let me look at my channel. Cool, it's live. Okay, so yeah, I'm not going to be on very long. If anybody sees this, or if you're watching as a replay, I appreciate it. If you can't tell by my voice, I'm getting over being ill. But I had an itch to do some drawing, and I've been doing a lot of sequential pages lately. And I had a point where I said, I want to do something different. And I couldn't think of just a random character that I wanted to draw. And it kind of dawned on me that I have all this really old art that I've done over the years. And I said, wouldn't it be kind of cool to go back and redraw one, pick one, redraw it, and kind of point out, things that I did wrong, things that obviously I'm going to do differently and do better. So that's what we're going to do. So this is the piece that I drew 25 years ago. Excuse me. So in 1997, I don't know if this finished in 97, if the whole thing was drawn in 97, or if it was I think it was put away for a while. I think I started it and put it down and wasn't sure what to do with it. But anyway, there are definitely some things here that need to be fixed. The paper size is weird. So this one is 11 by 17. So this is it's 17 by, so I guess it's 14 by 17 maybe. At the time I had no idea about the right sizes. I think I used Sharpie for all the black areas. I'm surprised it hasn't faded too badly. And then all the colors are colored pencil. I didn't have any markers back then that I worked with, so I worked with this these Prismacolor colored pencils. So yeah, so we're gonna redo this guy and see what we would do differently. So I'm just gonna put it over here so I can take a look at it, but then I will go back to it from time to time and just kind of relook and see. So the first thing, of course, is I have to start with the figure, and I can guarantee you, just looking at this, I didn't start the way I'm about to. If you look at the head, now comic book characters and stuff are always taller and stuff than they should be. But you figure 8.5 heads high is kind of your guide. And this guy is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 7, 8. And he just seems really long and super wide. This from here to here seems just super wide to me. So the proportions are way off. And I don't know that I sat down and said, let's go through and draw, the proportions and do the whole figure and place it on the page and then start doing in my details. I think I literally just started drawing the face and worked my way out. I also know for sure that I didn't have a plan when I started drawing this. I just had this idea of wouldn't it be cool to have sort of this biomechanical character who would be sort of trussed up and hooked up on, cables and cords and stuff like that. And wouldn't that be pretty cool? And that was the only idea I had, what led me to this. I had no other idea besides that. So when I started, I was just making it up as I went. And that's why I have weird, clunky choices about this gauntlet thing. I don't understand the big yellow gauntlet thing. I don't know what it is. The feet are crazy. I definitely had this idea. I wanted to do a screen with that wireframe computer drawing, and that's probably that part actually probably came out better than I expected it to. And certainly, looking back on it, I look back and go, that part's actually not so bad. So first thing, obviously, just the anatomy, the proportions of the figure. This guy has no internal. This point. This guy has little in the way of internal organs. He's all chest. His back is ridiculously wide, and he has no hips. So we're going to fix that. So the key, of course, is to build all your structure first, then start laying stuff on top of it, as opposed to the way I did it here, which was just sort of not really understanding it and drawing straight out and winging it. So let's see. The other thing I should do, just in case, I should grab my phone, just in case somebody actually is watching. Look here. So just in case somebody joins and has a question in the chat, is that this is actually, I think, my first live stream as far as YouTube goes. I've never really done it before. So I wasn't sure how it was going to work and that kind of thing. So I didn't advertise it. I wanted to make sure it was actually going to work first, which I think it is. Yeah. There's a little delay. That's okay. So, but I'll save this so that folks can watch it as a replay if they want to do that. So, excuse me. So just starting out, figures there, there's some adjustments and changes. The only problem is I think the arms are going to be too wide. So obviously the old one I did is on a wider paper. So if I do the figure, it's sort of the same proportion. It's not going to fit. So I've got to shrink them down a little bit. Now this is the argument for those who are into digital art, is you can just resize. So if you draw something and you're like, oops, the entire figure is a little too large, you can just use the computer or vice versa. I do not work digitally, obviously. So I have to erase, but you know what? That is okay. It's one of the things that I think is hardest to learn for young artists, is that it's okay to use your eraser. I can't tell you, over the years, I would get, as a kid, I would get these art kits and stuff. People would buy me as gifts and things, and I would never use the erasers because I thought, a good artist, if you know what you're doing, you won't use the eraser. It wasn't until much later in life where I went, oh, actually, the better artists do use the eraser, because they're smart enough to know that I might want to make some changes between the beginning and what the end product is, and that they're smart enough to see where this might work better this way or that way, and they can sort of self-edit as they go, as opposed to, like I said, my thought was, well, if you're a good artist, what you're trying to do, and then you don't have to. Did I make it the same sentence? You don't have to erase, but that certainly is not the case. Erasing is a very powerful tool, and one that I highly recommend artists use. So here we go. So obviously, I started with the part that was giving me the trouble, the width of the arms. So it's really small. I mean, I can see the lines under that I erased, and there's not a significant amount. Like I didn't shrink down the figure a ton, but enough that those arms should fit in there okay. I won't have quite the big gauntlet that I put on him in the first place. We'll come up with something a little sleeker design maybe. That'll be okay. So let's see. So again, very rough, using a pencil with this lead holder. With this, I've gotten it where it's this real flat tip. I've just from using this lead, so I can just kind of really smoothly go over the paper without digging in. So it's easy to erase. It's easy to just roll into these forms, be very organic with it, and just get that shape where I want it to be. Bring that down a little. There. So kind of something like that. Right, reminiscent, I think, hopefully, of Da Vinci. That idea. Not trying to get, I realize looking at it like this, not trying to get religious with it. Hopefully it doesn't read that way. But we'll see. Certainly not my goal. But art is subjective. So if there's something you see in it and it speaks to you that way, then that's your interpretation. So okay. All right. So got some basic shape down. So now I'm going in with a smaller, obviously mechanical pencil, and I'm going to start to lay down some of the more final lines that I'll go with. So he's got like this helmet. I think I was going to call him like a bullet or something like that. Like the idea was that he sort of, I think the idea is that he flies like a bullet, and that he is like a human projectile. I don't remember. I don't know if that was the plan. I obviously nothing ever came of it. He's got a very wide jaw and a very 90s facial hair. So, I mean, it's been quite a while. Beards have been in for some time. Are goatees out? Is just the chin hair out? This is super 90s. This was like the grunge look was just this like chin beard, no mustache, just the chin. All right, we'll try it and see how it looks. The other part is it's a metal helmet, and I'm thinking about the eyes, and I've given him like Batman eyes, like the kind of eyes Batman has in his cloth cowl in the comics, but it's a metal helmet, so the eyes wouldn't have that kind of shape. They'd have to sort of be cutouts. So I'm thinking that maybe I'll give him some sort of a cutout, and then I can decide if he's got, maybe his eyes glow. Maybe he's got robotic glowing eyes. I'm not sure. We'll see. That could be cool. I think that was sort of the idea, that this guy's like, right, he's sort of a a 90s take on, say, like the $6 Million Man. So for anybody who is my age or older, you possibly remember Steve Austin, not Stone Cold Steve Austin. Steve Austin, the original, the $6 Million Man, and the guy. So if you don't remember, he was a character who was a astronaut, test pilot, astronaut, one of the two. I forget which one, and was in an accident, and they rebuilt him into this Bionic Man, the Bionic Man. And so parts of him were bionic, and they could do amazing feats, super strength, and he could run super fast, and he could hear and see and all that kind of stuff. And that was the deal. And nowadays, you're like, $6 million. It's pretty cheap to make a cyborg. That'd be pretty cool, right? Nowadays, you'd have to make him this, the $6 trillion man. But that was my idea. Is that this guy was, I think, is robotic in some way, or at least, like a cyborg. He's got robotic parts, and that's why he has to be plugged into all this stuff every so often to get, maybe upgrades or repairs or re-energized or whatever, something like that. So we got here. So, and then one of the things that I've learned over time, which I'm still not great at, I still get hung up on. When you're a kid and you're learning to draw comics, one of the first things everybody does is you got to draw the muscles, right? So you go to books and you go to things and you're like, you got to know, what are the muscles? So the chest muscles are these big, superheroes, male superheroes, Superman, Hulk, got these big chest muscles, big shoulder muscles, the biceps really big. You got your tricep underneath, the stomach muscles. He's got to have a six-pack and all that kind of stuff. In the end, drawing every single muscle isn't really as important. I'm going through, and it doesn't matter if you have it exactly anatomically correct, because realistically, I'm not going to draw every single muscle line necessarily. I want to have the shapes in there so that when, in the end, if I erase some of these lines, so if I erase this part here, the shape of that arm is right. The shape of the shoulder and everything is right. So it's not about drawing every single muscle. And like I said, I know a lot of young artists can get hung up on that. And sometimes I still do. Depends on the character and the costume and that sort of stuff. And sometimes you do. Sometimes you want to draw all the muscles and make them look really cool. And sometimes it's more about the shape. Especially characters like take like a Batman, for example, right? Where I think less is more. He's a character that's supposed to be in the shadows. Sometimes he has sort of an armor. Sometimes he doesn't. Having just that shape of the muscles is more powerful than if you draw every muscle. If it looks like Batman spray paints his costume on, it looks weird. Superman, on the other hand, maybe it's just because it's what we're used to, or I guess if you have a character like, say, He-Man, who doesn't doesn't have a costume. He's he's shirtless. He's just got kind of little shorts. Then yeah, you're going to want to draw more muscles. The Hulk. Hulk's another good one. You're going to want to probably draw more muscles on the Hulk, whereas other characters not. So I'm giving him some hips this time, which I didn't do last time. And then, let's see, yeah. Here, there's a gap at your knees, because your knees don't actually touch together, per se. I mean, no. If you have, especially if you have muscles in your thighs, you can't force your legs together and then have your knees touch on the inside. Doesn't work that way. So we'll give him some leg muscles. Leg muscles are funky. There's quite a few that sort of stack on top of each other to build the leg. And again, the shape is what's really important. And there's only a couple of muscles you have to sort of highlight in order to get it to look like a good leg. Again, if you want to look at like, bodybuilders and stuff like that to get all the leg muscles, you can. But basically, I like to make sure I know where the kneecap is. So if that's where his kneecap is, right above on the inside of the kneecap, it's like a teardrop muscle that kind of goes there, like that. And I just like to do the bottom of it, because that's, if you have any definition in your own leg, if you flex it, you can see there's usually like a little dimple right above your knee. That's what that muscle is there. It's going to go like that. There's a sort of an inside, your groin in there. There's going to be sort of one on top there, and it's going to build out from there. So again, like, you can draw all these muscles, but I'm not going to keep all that, because really all I'm looking to do is show just some shape. So I'm going to get it to here. Get rid of most of that. So kind of something like that. So if it's easier for you to, when you're starting out, to sort of draw all the little bubbles on top of each other to make sure you're not missing anything, more power to you. And then erase, cool. Whatever works. Once you start to know kind of where the muscles are, you can just draw just the elements of it that you want to keep. And the calves are weird as well. They sort of bend out, kind of. It seems like, right, it would be straight, but they're kind of not. There's a smaller muscle on the inside and this big long muscle down the outside, and it gives it an illusion that it sort of goes on the outside. To the ankles and to the feet. And with feet, so he's going to have some sort of boots on, some sort of comic book character boots on. So I don't have to draw all the toes and all that, but that with a foot, so trying to think how to explain it. The top of your foot is sort of like this, right? The top of your foot, if you're looking down on it, so his feet are pointed, his toes are pointed. The top of your foot is sort of like this, and then here, so on the inside, right, that's where your big toe is. You have a ball on the inside of your foot, so it's going to go like that's the arch of your foot. So it's going to go out, and then typically your toes will kind of go like this. Some people are different. Some people have toes that go straight across. I think some people have some that go like that. For the most part, your bigger toes typically larger, but again, Your mileage may vary, your toes may vary, but that's sort of the general shape. And again, that's really what you're just looking for is that shape. Then from there, we can apply whatever we need to it. So I would say, just sort of looking at this, I might make his feet a little bigger. I think his feet were a little small. A little larger. There. Okay. And then hands again. So we get the forearms to the wrist is here. I'll angle the hand down slightly just to help it fit on the page. Thumb is going to be pointed towards us. And just a squared off shape just to emphasize, or just to sort of hint at a fist of some kind. And because it's a superhero picture, of course, just even at rest, his hands are in fists, but who knows? Maybe I'll change it. We will see. Let's see. And then if I want to keep a general kind of similarities again, I can make obviously whatever changes I want, but I'll keep the metal. We'll keep the metal. We'll keep the star-ish, whatever diamond in the middle of his chest logo shape. That's cool. We'll rework the gloves. We'll rework the boot part, but we'll do metal across his shoulders. So I'm just going to kind of block that in. So I've got it coming down off his neck and across the shoulders. And it looks, I guess, so if you put your arm out to the side and then you turn it so that your hand is facing down. So I'm doing what he's doing with my arm. The metal wouldn't be on the, is it on the back of his arm, the top of his arm, shoulder to the top? So probably wouldn't see as much of it here as we did in the original. Because otherwise it would be covering, to see it from the front, right? The camera's pointing this way. It'd have to be covering half of your bicep. So let's see, maybe we'll do like I said, keep it up higher. The shoulder can be covered completely. We'll do a diamond shape. Don't know what the diamond shape is for. Probably just, realistically, I think it was just to break up this big area in the center. Of course, the other one, the guy's chest was twice as wide as what I've drawn here. So I had this big area. I think it makes sense to have something there. That's why you see a lot of superhero logos and, right, Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, Green Lantern, The Flash, you name it. Wonder Woman even, most have this sort of a logo or a design on the chest of the costume, because it's this big piece of just blank real estate of just color. If you don't do something with it, there's nothing to break it up, and it becomes kind of weird. So at about his hips, the hips I didn't draw on the other one, but in this one I did. He's got metal that goes down the leg. And it looks like at least down here. So once we decide what we're going to do with the boots, we'll have to figure that out. Okay. And then he's got the stomach, so kind of partway up here, and the inside of his legs to here is also metal. Okay. So there we go with that. All right. So clearly, a lot better with the anatomy. So here's the original again. Too wide, no hips. The arms are too long, so the bicep, it doesn't really plug into the body, right? There'd be a shoulder, sort of a shoulder joint here, and it's sort of like his arms have been disconnected. Wonky feet. I got down to here. I drew the boot part, as you could tell, and then went, I don't know how the legs work inside here, and kind of messed it up. So here we've got it all worked out. Much better, much better anatomy. And again, because I'm taking the time to work through those details first, as opposed to just kind of winging it as I went. The other thing, though, is, to be honest, there's something to be said for this. And what I mean is the exaggeration of characters. How, you know, his neck is wider than his head. It's not realistic, but that's okay. It's comic books. So depending on the character you have, the Hulk or is a great source of exaggeration. Characters like Pitt, the Abomination. I'm trying to think of the DC side of things. I mean, crazy characters like Clayface, that just changes all the time. The guy's a giant pile of clay. Bane from Batman. Bizarro from Superman. There's all sorts of characters that you can really play with and have real cartoony anatomy. You know, you can go in there and be like, I'm going to make this guy's lats like crazy. He's going to be like this wide. This dude, all he does is lift, and it's nuts, and he's just boom, jacked to the gills. That's okay. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. And again, it's fun, and depending on the style you're working in, can make a lot of sense. So for me, I tend to work in a more traditional style, a more traditional, Western comic book style, I think. But don't forget to exaggerate where it makes sense and have fun with it. So that's that part of it. Let me see here. It says, I'm just looking at my feed. It says I started 6 minutes ago. No, it must be longer than that, right? Let's see. How much more do I want to keep going tonight? Let's figure out I'm going to figure out the boots and the glove solution. Like, what am I going to do from a design standpoint there? Excuse me. The other thing I can start to do is go back with this other pencil and start to block in some of these other details, right? Like, so he's got a tube that comes down, theoretically plugs in the back of his head. There's one that would go sort of to the back. So I'm going to go from here. These are kind of holding them up, maybe. And then one that's going to go to whatever hand or glove solution we get. Same thing on this side. There's another one I like. It crosses over, which is a nice thing. Good way to create depth, and it's real simple in any of your like background elements that you do is just cross things over. So if you have like a tree, you have trees in the background, put one tree and have it go in front of another tree, and all of a sudden you have instant depth. Put a bush or a rock in front of that first tree, now you have 3 layers of depth. And the more you do, the more interesting your backgrounds and stuff become without having to do crazy amounts of work. It's just adding a couple of simple layers. So he has one of these off his thigh. So in the original, kind of funky, I had this tube sort of wrap around him. I don't think I want one to wrap around. I think I'm going to leave that out this time. But we definitely, I like the idea that he's got one coming off his leg here, and that it splits and branches. I kind of dig that. Let's see. I would say we could do one. So again, whatever the boot solution is, we can do one off of that, one off of that. And now what I'm doing is now I look back and go, okay, where's the balance? So this one that came down has to go somewhere. So let's go. We can just sort of go like there. So we've got more over here, a little bit here. That works for me as far as the balance goes. Let's see here. And then, yeah, now I can add just sort of generic buttons and boxes, and we'll see if we can figure out how to do like his the screen. There'll be a lot of wires, and I like that element where it looks kind of almost, like webs of wires hanging off of stuff. That'll be cool. All right, so let's see here real quick. Let's get to the glove part. So obviously I had these giant gauntlets, which made no sense. Like I couldn't have touched anything. The gauntlets, it stuck out. It was like a highlight mitt or something crazy. So let's see. What if we just do? What if the glove part is just the costume, right? So let's say he's got more of a traditional superhero glove and a superhero boot that just sort of goes like that and that. But what if for this purposes, these things are plugged into sort of something that's just around his hands and feet for now, right? So when he's getting maintenance or recharging or whatever, these things come around and clamp around his arms and his feet or his legs. And then we can do like, we'll do like this. So we want on each side. And whatever sort of power source he has, these tubes plug into it and recharge them. So then it doesn't have to be this weird gauntlet part. Maybe that was my original idea. I don't remember at this point now. Let's see. So one of the things I want to try to I'll find a way to keep up here. I like it. There's this, I'll show you on the original. So this part right here, which I didn't do it right because it's not clear enough, I don't think. But these things are from Star Trek, from the old original Star Trek, where if they were in the sick bay and they'd be on the bed, there were these lights and these dots, and these arrows would go up and down. And I guess it was supposed to measure like their heart rate or something. But I remember seeing that. I was like, oh, that's cool. I want to put that in. So I'll put those in like they're measuring him. And then the other thing I will definitely be doing, which I did not do in the original, is using straight edges and templates. Yeah, there's some circles over here. They are not circles. But that's all right. There. And then something, again, just trying to find balance. So you've got stuff where it needs to be. And then, yeah, wires are cool. Wires come off of this thing. Just come off of this one. Wires off of here. Wires off his head for sure. Yeah. So, alrighty. So there we go. So at this point, about the only other thing I would do is I could go in and really start to work on the shading and the lighting if I wanted to in pencil. Right? I could decide where the light source is from. That's another problem with the original. There is no real light source. What I mean is, so there's shadows underneath like his pectoral muscles and sort of here. So that would sort of indicate that the light is coming from here. Okay. The problem is it's not really consistent throughout. What I mean is there's no shadow under here. There's no shadow underneath this. There's no shadowing sort of underneath much of any of the tubes or cables. So I sort of put it on the body in one little spot, and then that's it. There isn't a good shadow under his chin, under the helmet itself. If this overhangs, like it looks like it would, it does over his nose and stuff. There should be a big shadow there. So there is no real light. Everything is lit. Now that's one thing you could do it that way. You can do it so that everything is lit equally. This guy's in a lab. Maybe there's a bunch of lights. But if that's the case, you have to sort of show that in order for the reader, whoever's looking at the piece, to understand where that light is coming from. Otherwise, it just looks like there's none. So, I could do a top light, which I think would be cool because of this helmet, right? So the way that the helmet hangs over his face, it would cast this big shadow right down, over his lip. Same with the top above his eyes would be shadow. And that could be kind of cool, as opposed to a directional. And then you'd have a big shadow under his chin. And then again, underneath, under the limbs, underneath everything. So the bottom of the kneecap is going to cast a shadow. It's that kind of stuff. The rib cage is going to come out. That's going to cast a core shadow. So I could go through and set up all my core shadows with the idea of a light coming straight down. I think that works. I'll probably go with that. Usually, a lot of times I would just think about it in my head, and I might have an idea, or especially if I'm doing sequential pages in a comic book story, I know where the light source would be coming from. It's they're outside, so it's sunlight, so it's sort of coming down from above, essentially. Or they're in a room and there's overhead lights, and you can kind of figure that out. This one, it's so variable, it could be anywhere I want it to be, right? So I just have to figure that out. And as opposed to doing it while I'm inking and kind of doing it on the fly, I think maybe I'll do it here like this. Now, one of the other things, I talked about the muscles and how shape is more important than highlighting every muscle. The more intense and directional that your light source is, the more your muscles are going to show, right? So, because they're going to cast shadows. So if you've got, you may not have drawn, I didn't really draw a 6-pack of abs, but as the shadow's going to come down, this is going to stick, right? It sticks out. So underneath, there's going to be a little shadow. This part sticks out, so the light's going to hit here. And then underneath is going to be kind of a little bit of a shadow. So the more harsh or unidirectional, the less light you have, the more it can, your shading's going to pop out those muscle groups. So just something to think about. And then, so then the top part, especially of the helmet and stuff here, if it's metal, which it looks, I think it's what it was. I'm going to put a big sort of reflection up there, which actually is supposed to be, this bright spot is the reflection of the light. That's actually whatever the light source is up above is casting that. And then let's see, you get the metal bands, so you gotta make sure you have that pattern down correctly, where it's spaced out right, and that it also goes in the right direction, meaning that the curve follows the curve of the body. So like here, if I bend it this way, that makes it look like it's a cylindrical figure pointed this way at you, right? Because it bends back that way. If I do it the other way, if I make it go this way, that makes it look like the arm is going back in space. So you got to make sure that, if I want it to remain sort of neutral, I don't really want to have a great bend on it. Either way, keep it kind of flat. And same thing with like this part here with the legs. And this always has to do, I'm trying to think of how to explain it well. There's a point when you're wrapping something around a cylindrical figure, which is what this is. This guy's a body, so he's round. And I'm drawing lines that go around. So if it's above your eye line, I guess if it's above your eye line, let me see if I can explain. A different piece of paper. So you have a cylinder. So if you could see the top of the cylinder, and you see how this, right? So this would be the top of the cylinder. Then I'm going to wrap around lines around it. It has to follow this. I have to go like this, because that's the shape all the way down. It has to match. Okay. If I did it the other way, it doesn't make sense to how your eye understands perspective. So if I go like this, that's broken, because this points up. So this would be, if you can't see the top of it, you could only, let's say you could see the bottom of it. Now the line would curve up because of where your eye is. Here you're looking, you can see this, so your eye is going this way. From here you can see the top, which means your eye is going this way. That's how the curves have to flow. Here's the part that's tough. When you have a form, and it's so big, and your eye is basically here, you can't see the top or the bottom, right? It's a giant building, it's a tree, it's a telephone pole. Okay, so when those things happen, you're not going to see the underside of it. You're not going to see the top of it. You're just going to see that. So here's what happens is wherever your eye line is flat. From there, as you go up, it's going to get more and more curved in perspective. As you move down, it's going to get more and more curved down. So that's kind of what we've got here on the legs. Essentially, your eye is sort of in the middle. So from here, it's going to go one way, and eventually we're going to get to a point about here, and it's going to start to curve the other way. And then it's going to bend back around on the calves. It's very confusing. It's one of those things where you sort of have to do it, and you'll understand. The hardest one, of course, is Spider-Man. If you draw Spider-Man and you get the web pattern and stuff down, this will all make sense to you if you can eventually get that down. But it's not easy. So, all right. There we go. Lots of and I'll tell you this: if you look at the original here, again, I made mistakes on that in some of these, like some of the pipes and stuff. I think like this one. So this one bends with the curve facing that way, and then as it comes across, now as it goes this way, it turns and it goes the other way. Same with this one. They should be going the same way. Otherwise, this one's going back in space and this one's going back that way in space. So they're sort of going, they're going like that instead of like that. So that's all stuff that we're going to clean up in this new piece. I appreciate you watching. Thank you so much for checking this out. I hope it's been informational and interesting, and I appreciate you putting up with my yucky, sick voice. Good news is I'm getting better every day, and I'm going to keep on working on this until we get it done, and I hope you join me along the way. Thanks so much for checking it out, and I will be back soon.